had something brilliant in my mind, and then like that's not going to work. In my mind, I was thinking I stalked Liz for some time, and then I realized she was also following me, and I felt brilliant. Like, wow! So this person who seems all friendly and cool, and that was my intro. And actually, this probably will end up making the intro after
I
all.
like it. Yes.
Liz, you're absolutely brilliant. I've been on your podcast. We've met in real life. You are such a warm personality, and it comes through the screen, which is exactly the same in real life.
I'm so glad.
But for people who don't know who you are, would you do us all the favor of introducing yourself to the world?
Yeah, sure. I'm Liz. I am a graphic designer. I guess is the like top level 2-word answer of who I am and what I do. But like most creatives, I enjoy doing lots of different things. So over the years, I've sort of specialized in branding design. I particularly work with small business owners. I say small business owners. Technically, I think it's micro business owners. And I guess do lots of other things under the umbrella of helping small business owners with their branding and marketing. So I have a podcast, which you were a guest on, called Building Your Brand. I've created courses, to help them sort of fill gaps with kind of design topics that they might be struggling with. And then I also collaborate with brands. So like particularly Adobe, for example, is kind of like a long-term partnership. And like with them have done sort of more public speaking, like live streaming, but it all kind of is reaching the same sort of audience. So, helping small business owners with those tasks. I think often when I try and describe it, it feels like there's lots of different things, but the more I think about it, the more I realize like it does all sit together with this kind of like common theme and common purpose, I hope. Anyway.
I want to ask you, what's a micro business? Because people listening will be like, what's that?
So I think the reason I don't use micro business, right, is I don't think that anyone would describe themselves as a micro business. But technically a small business is because actually can be really big. So it could be like a team of like, I think it's up to like 50 people.
Yeah, it is.
And I think like with a like absolutely huge income, and actually those aren't the people, I don't work with companies that are like 50 people strong. So a micro business is like, I'm a micro business, like one person. I identify as a business, but it's not like a big team. I don't run an agency. I think under 5 or maybe it's under 10 employees as a micro business. You can Google what the like official numbers are. But yeah, it's basically smaller than what's technically a small business. But I tend not to use the phrase because no one identifies as a micro business themselves. They identify as a small business usually.
So I normally talk to people about being niche, but I don't hear that you have one. Is that right?
I would say my niche is size of business rather than industry. So I don't niche by industry. But as I mentioned, like I wouldn't work with, like a 50 strong team. I would work with like, probably a team that was like 5 or less in their company.
Why is that?
Well, okay, it's actually an interesting story. So when I used to work in-house as a kind of like hobby project, I set up a stationery business, designing my own stationery. And it was very much kind of like, look, I'm spending my days working for one client. Like I needed a different creative outlet where I didn't have anyone that I had to sort of get feedback from or report back to. So it was kind of like a hobby business on the side of my 9-to-5 job. And through that, I was living in London at the time. I was going to all these like markets and craft fairs, and I just fell in love with that community. Like, that kind of like really entrepreneurial, doing things themselves. Like they had a lot of like flexibility. They could pivot quickly. They could follow trends. They could, like create really amazing products. And I think because I was in that community, I realized that that was the sort of group of people that I just love to serve and I love to work with. Like I find that sort of group of businesses very exciting, very fun. like I just feel really passionately about those sort of one person businesses, or like one person with a small team. And
Yeah.
so I think because I'd been part of that world, it just seemed like when I did set up my own business, when I went all in on the sort of like service based business that I was running, that was kind of the group that I was really excited about working with. So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, I get that. And that makes sense. It's nice to just do things that are fulfilling to oneself rather than just following what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks that you should do. And I like that you're just following your path. How did you end up starting the podcast?
I would love to say that there was loads of strategy behind it, but there wasn't. Basically, I had made friends online with this woman called Lucy, and we were just chatting. And basically, I had thought, oh, I bet you I would love podcasting, because I've always been like quite a sort of classic extrovert. Like I love chatting to people. I get very like invigorated and energized from chatting to people, and I find people interesting. But I had this like classic, I think this is quite common, this classic sort of chip on my shoulder where I was like, it was like pandemic time, right? So I was like, oh, but everyone's starting a podcast. So if everyone's doing something, it immediately makes me not want to do it, even though I know that it's something that I would love and would be really good for me. But anyway, I made friends with Lucy, and she's a podcast producer. And we were just chatting one day, and she was like, oh, I really need to sort out my branding. And I was like, and then I had obviously said at some point, oh, maybe I should start a podcast. And so we basically did a skill swap. And she was like, how about I edit the first 12 episodes of your podcast, help you launch it and everything, and you do my branding. And I was like, yeah, great, amazing. It felt like a really low risk way to get into podcasting. And I kind of figured it was a good opportunity to see if I liked it. And if I didn't, I had 12 evergreen episodes that could just sit there. There'd be like no sort of harm really. But if I did love it, maybe it would be this amazing thing to do. And obviously I loved it. I'm like now on like 170 something episodes. And also it worked out so well for her. I mean, not that this was her, like, I don't think this was like a tactic or anything, but I never had any interest in learning how to edit. So I basically kept employing her, and she still edits my podcast today. And I love working with her. And yeah, I think the thing with podcasting is a real slow burn. So you have to really love it, because it takes a long time, I think, before you really see the tangible benefits to your business. But now I have had so many tangible benefits where I'm like, okay, this was an amazing thing to do, and I'm so glad I kept going with it. But you have to love it enough to keep going with it for a long time before you start to see those results, I would say. So that's how it started. I think one of the things that worked in my favor is that coming up with like the title and the sort of idea of what the podcast was going to be about was really easy for me. So I remember her saying, like, I want you to see if you can come up with 30 episode ideas before we start, because if you can only come up with 5 and then that's it, like that's not going to be a very sustainable podcast. And it was really easy for me to come up with 30.
You're like, I've got 100.
Yeah, it's like overachiever. Just like, yeah, here's, yeah. And I think because I guess I am the demographic of my podcast, it's very easy for me to follow, well, actually, I would like to learn about XYZ. And most of the time, like, that is something that other people want to learn about as well. And one of my favorite compliments is when people message me and are like, oh, you asked the questions that I would have wanted to ask. And I'm like, yes. Nailed it.
That's so good. I haven't had that yet. I'm only 13. You'll be episode 14, maybe. I don't know. 13 episode in. But what I have gotten from guests is, oh, thank you for the questions you asked. I don't get to talk about this, but I'm like, oh, that's good. Except that, Liz, you've been on a podcast for, all this time. What is it that you haven't touched? Should we talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think what it is I haven't touched. I mean, well, I am quite vulnerable on my podcast.
Yes.
And I am quite open. Like, well, my episode with you was very like that, where it was like, oh, I can't believe I'm sharing this stuff. But I do mainly interview other people. So I think like one of the things I'm actually doing is over the summer I'm going to do a bunch of solo episodes where I
Mhm.
get to sort of share my branding expertise, because I don't actually talk about that much. Like often when people want me to come on as a guest, I'll talk about the rejection challenge or the
Mm.
podcast or other things like that. But yeah, there's probably not that much that I haven't shared because I am quite an oversharer.
How did you get into design?
That's a good question. I don't actually think that I really knew what design was when I was like a kid. Like I didn't really ever know, oh, that's a career option.
Mm.
Looking back, I can see loads of things that I used to do as a kid that, you know, like the classic stories where it's like, oh, okay, I can sort of see the design influence, you know, like the design influence back then. So I was telling someone the story the other day about how me and a friend of mine started like this really lo-fi magazine. I'm sure we were like cut and pasting it together, and my dad was like photocopying it, and we used to deliver it to the neighbors in our street.
That's
And there was a
amazing.
bookmark competition, so we'd give them a blank bookmark, and they had to like fill it in and design it, and then we'd choose a winner. I mean, honestly, the neighbors must have been like, "Who is this precocious child, and why am I having to design a bookmark?" But they like humored me. But basically, I thought I was going to be a photographer. So when I was really lucky in the art department I had in my school, and the one of the teachers was really into photography, and so he somehow wangled it that they allowed him to set up a dark room. I mean, it was basically in a cupboard in the art department. But I got really into photography. And this does age me, but I used to like develop my photos in the dark room, and I loved the whole process. It was amazing. So I went and did this foundation course, which was basically you get to try all of these things. And I went into it thinking, I'm going to do photography. And
Yeah.
that was where I discovered design. And the reason that I loved it was because I just enjoy lots of different things. And I felt like design was the path where I could actually bring those things together. So even if I wasn't the one creating the photographs or doing the illustrations, I was the one bringing them all together. And that really
Mhm.
appealed to me. So I think, yeah, I guess I mean, you touched on my sort of lack of niche. I guess I felt like design was a way that I wouldn't be forced to niche too much, and I could
Mhm.
do a bit of all sorts, which has proven to be true. So that's kind of where I discovered design more formally and realized that that was what I wanted to do. And I think a bit more of a rare case where I studied design at university, and yes, there's been lots of sort of like turns and bends and different iterations of it, but I've worked in design my whole career.
Your whole life is
My
design.
whole life. I just live and breathe design.
At what point did you add strategy to your wait, do you do strategy? Do you do brand strategy as well?
No,
Okay.
I don't
My
offer that.
question sucks.
I never added strategy. I mean, maybe I will.
Oh my gosh. I'm asking the best questions.
No, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you add strategy to your designing?
I
Tell us about your process. I want to know because I think about the clients that I have, and I think it's always interesting to see how all the processes differ. And even though elements tend to be the same, there's always something that is like, ah, you do that. That's so interesting. That gives you that edge, you know?
yeah.
Like there, it's really interesting to compare. Even though it's all similar, it feels interesting. Do you want to share your process?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel a bit self-conscious sharing it because there's loads of opinions online. You know, like there's lots of people who very vocally share their opinion of what a design or what a branding process should look like. And I tend to I tend to not follow the typical advice. But I personally, like, I think that one of the things that I love about design the most, and this is probably why I love the podcast as well, is it's the people that I get to work with. And I like
Mhm.
to work really collaboratively with my clients, so that influences sort of the decisions that I make. There's probably some issues that I have to work through as well. You know, maybe I should try some other things. But basically, the way it'll tend to go is, you know, I'll have an inquiry, they'll get in touch with me, we'll have a call. I definitely want to be one of those people where if it's not the right job for me, and there are some that aren't, that I'll be like really upfront about that. So it's as much as for me to work out if it's the right job for me as it is for them to
Yeah.
work out if I'm the right designer for them as well. But if all of that kind of like comes together and it works, it fits and it works, and I've honed my sort of like red flag monitor. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still working on that, but there's definitely certain things where I'm like, this isn't the right fit for me. But then I'll typically get them to fill out quite a comprehensive like questionnaire. So often it's the things that we've talked about on the call, but I just find it really helpful to have it written down.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where, like ideally they've done that strategy work ahead of this. And then, like filling out that questionnaire will be really easy for them. And it'll,
Mm.
it's a lot of the sort of foundational aspects of their brand that I'll need to know. Then I tend to create a couple of mood boards and go back to them with feedback. And this is often me almost just like repeating what they've either shown me or told me. So I don't, if they give me a Pinterest board, I'm not giving them back their Pinterest board. I'm creating like a new version, but it's very much just to confirm that
Yes.
visually I'm on the right route. And I usually do two because I found that I think it's very helpful for people to have something to contrast
Mm-hmm.
and compare, and it helps them work out, oh, okay, no, this is the right one because that's the wrong one. Like sometimes having the
Yeah,
wrong thing helps people a lot.
I agree.
Yeah, since I've started doing two, it's been really helpful for my process. So then once they're happy with the mood board, I'll go away, and this is where it gets controversial because I know a lot of people are all about the one brand like method or the one concept method, and I still do three.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is like I found a process of doing it that works for me, and I enjoy doing it that way. I get people's frustrations with it, but it's still working for me, so I'm still doing it. But
Yeah.
basically, again, similarly for the reasons with the mood board, I find that when I chat to them, having done the three concepts, often having a concept that they don't feel is right helps them work out which concept is right. So I personally find that it helps them, but also I do think that it helps them feel really part of it, and
Yeah.
it does help it feel much more collaborative because they can come back to me and like really clearly verbalize or explain what it is they love about it and what it is they don't. And part of that is from having like other things presented to them that aren't quite right. So then it makes it easier for them to go, okay, this isn't right. And I know why. And then
Mm-hmm.
then they're really part of the process. And it's not just me being like, this is what's right for you. There's no wiggle room. Like you just have to do it. And I
Yeah.
do get that sometimes. I think sometimes there does have to be an instance where you almost have to like pull rank as a designer, and you have to be like, no, strategically, what you're saying isn't the right option, and I'm going to explain to you why as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's something really nice about that collaborative approach, and I have found that often working in that way has resulted in a better solution than I think if I was just, like working on my own and just being like, right, here it is, take it or
Yeah.
leave it. So yeah, that process still works for me. So I'll present them and I'll do it face to face. This is a huge thing for me. Not necessarily in person, but at least on Zoom.
Yeah.
Because it really, really helps me to see their gut reaction in real
Yes.
time. I think early on in my career, I used to like record a video of me talking through it and just email it to them and then wait for the response. And I realized pretty quickly that that just wasn't a good way for me to do it. So seeing their response is really helpful. And I really make it clear to them that they can go away and change their mind and they can have more time to think about it. But it's just so helpful seeing their gut reaction
Yeah.
on the call. And then usually it's just a little bit of back and forth. Like there's usually one concept that they're like, yeah, this is the one. And then it's usually just a little bit of back and forth, like tweaking things slightly and getting the whole, all the different, like locker, all the different like logo types, all the
Mm-hmm.
different like assets that they need. So often they're like a product based business. So it might be like, a postcard that needs to go out with their orders, stuff like that. And then delivering everything to them. And one interesting thing that I did change with my process is I never know if it's bad to say this. I know some designers love this part of the process, but I realized that creating brand guidelines was a huge bottleneck for me. So once I created all the designs, I used to really struggle with delivering everything because I was like, oh, I need to do the brand guidelines, and I didn't want to do it, so it would just get like pushed down the design
Ah,
list. And I remember having some coaching, and she was like, outsource if it's causing you problems, like that is something that you can template and outsource. And I did that, and it like changed my life. And so basically I finished the design, I set up my file in a particular way, I send it to my friend who is so good at that aspect of it. She creates it all, and it just means that I can deliver the brand like really really timely and quickly, and ultimately move on to the next project quicker. um and so I feel like it hasn't cost me, like obviously I pay her to do it, but I've kind of made it net neutral, you know, by the fact that I can move on to the next project quicker, and I
I love
increase my
that.
prices to like cover that. So that was a big change that I made. And I am a big believer, I think, in like if there's a bit of your business that you don't enjoy or that is like causing you resistance, like it's
Mhm.
okay to outsource it. Like some designers would never do it because they love that part of the process, or they do it as they go along, but it just wasn't working for me. So I outsourced it.
I love that you did that because ultimately, if you're not happy in your business and if you're exhausted, how can you be creative and do all the things that you need to do in the business? Oh yes. So when you show the three concepts and they choose the one, is it often the one that you think they should go with? Like, do you normally have a favorite?
So I definitely try and make sure that I love all of them, you know, like that I would be
Okay.
happy with all of them going forward
Yes.
to a degree, but I do always have a favorite. And I think they do often pick my favorite, and it's because I always put it first. Oh, and hopefully none of my clients listen to this. I always put it first, and I think I probably sell it better because it's my favorite. But I do make sure that I would be happy, you know, like I'm not going to put anything in there that I wouldn't be happy to then like show people or put in my portfolio. But I also, the other thing that I tend to do is I like to do two concepts that really, really closely follow the brief that they've given me. And then I
Yeah.
like to do one that answers the brief, but is a little bit of a wild card.
Yes.
So interprets it in a way that they haven't necessarily asked for, but actually could be something that they might not have considered, but now that they've seen it, they
Hmm.
love. Or again, it could be that situation where it's like it
Reinforced.
just affirms to them that that wasn't the right route. So I
Yeah.
find that that works really well for me. So I feel like I've got the process down of how I present them, that I don't tend to be in a situation now where there's one where I'm like, oh, I hate this one. I really hope they don't pick it. So actually, it works out fine. When I used to work in house, that used to happen to me all of the time,
Oh, really?
where I'd have to present like a whole bunch of designs, and then they would just like always pick the one that I hated. So I think, yeah, I've sort of learned how to mitigate that now.
That's good. So, you know how you were saying that some people really are against the three concept strategy. I feel like if it works for you and if you're not complaining about it, then there's no need to change or no need to judge it. If it works,
I think
then go
so.
run with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a system down that works for you and the clients.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the thing that gave me the confidence to keep going with it is actually hearing a few other designers describe their process and it being totally different again. So, like, I heard one designer saying that actually they do sketches of
Mhm.
loads of versions of of a logo, and they'll show them that at sketch phase and almost be like, what are you drawn to, and then they'll go down
Yeah.
the one concept method. And so I think that works, you know, like if that works as well, I think that's it, is whatever works
Yeah.
well for you. I think that is one of the things that I struggle with Instagram, is that people create content in such a like absolute way, and I get why they do it, because you know it's going to create more engagement, whatever the reasons are. But I think as someone who's very easily influenced, I can get really like sucked into, well, so and so saying that you like this is the only way to do it, and then thinking that I have to do that as well, or that, yeah, there's something wrong if I'm not doing it that way.
Yeah.
And I think a huge thing for me over the last 5 years is having that confidence to build my business how I want to build it, and to be like, well,
Yeah.
just because, X, Y, and Z influencer have said this is the way to do it, I don't have to do that.
Exactly. And I want everyone to listen to this and go, I don't have to do what other people tell me to do.
Yeah.
I think if we can just listen to ourselves more, obviously take in information, don't be ignorant, like take in
Yeah.
all the information that you want and need, but ultimately don't give away the power of choice to someone else. So when we make
Yeah.
decisions for ourselves, just the way that you're doing right now, that's probably the most powerful thing that you can do.
And I think the other lesson that I've been learning, like sometimes people's advice is right. Like I will listen to some things that people say online, and deep down, I know that if I implemented it exactly how they are describing, it probably would have the effect that they're describing. But I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so, and that's fine, but I have
Mhm.
to accept that I won't get the results that they're describing. But sometimes
Yes.
that's okay. And I'm willing to sacrifice that to do things the way that I want to do it. And I listened to this really good talk last week where she basically was like, don't do what you want, but don't complain about the results you don't get from the
Yeah.
things that you didn't do. And I just think that's it, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to listen to your advice. If I like it, I'll do it. If I don't, I won't. But I'm not going to moan about the fact that, what you said would happen didn't happen,
Yeah.
because I actively made a choice not to do it. And I think that's it. Is like having the confidence, to be like, okay, that's the desired result I want, but I don't want to get to it that way. So I'm going to find a different way to do it. And yeah, it might take me a bit longer. Yeah. And I think it depends how much you want something. Like, do you want something so much that you're willing to kind of like put aside like the journey to get there in a particular way and do it
Yeah.
exactly how someone said? Yeah. Sort of depends what's important to you, I think.
Yeah. It always, what's the word? Confounds me. Is that a word? Perplexes me, maybe,
Yeah.
when people are complaining about certain things. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do? It's like, I did X, Y, Z. I'm like, no, you didn't actually do X, Y, Z. You think you did X, Y, Z, and you're complaining about it because you did it your way. You added you added your spin to it.
Yeah.
So it's not really going to end up with the same result. So it's you have a very high level of awareness about yourself, which is very, very admirable. And I think not everyone knows what they're doing. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but not everyone sees themselves. Not
Mm.
everybody is aware of all the actions they're taking because they see themselves from a lens that isn't even their own. And that can then skew everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably that is where some people come unstuck as well, where, like you said, they look at the thing that someone's telling them to do and they think that they're doing it exactly, but they're not realizing, like you said, that they're sort of putting their own spin on it, they're putting their own flavor on it. And so then they're not getting the results that they expected. And then that's really frustrating for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard.
It is hard. Liz, do you know your human design? Did I ever ask you this?
No, I know nothing about human design. I do not know
Oh,
what my human design is. I need to
because,
research it.
okay. Well, after this, I will do your human design.
Okay.
I mean, we could do it live, but I don't know how interesting it would be for everyone. But I'm so curious about your human design, actually. So I'm going to do it afterwards. And
Okay.
then I'll post it in the show notes if you want to
Yes.
share it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm so curious about your heritage because in passing, you said that where are you from? Like your heritage? Like you're mixed, right?
I'm mixed heritage, yeah.
Which I didn't
I'm
know until you said it in passing. I can't remember what your
I
mix
think
is.
it was in the talk that you heard me, because loads of people were really shocked when I said it because they had no idea. So I grew up in Wales. My dad's English and my mum's Colombian.
Mm,
So South American, yeah, British
okay.
mixed heritage.
And do you have a lot of South American family that you see and meet?
Yeah.
Because immediately when you said that to me, I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. For some reason, I'm like, oh, this is why she's so friendly.
Do you know what? You're not the first person who has not known that and then found it out and have gone, oh,
Um,
it's so interesting.
Yeah. So I'm half Swedish, half Pakistani. And so the
Okay.
Swedish side is really cold, but the Pakistani side is really warm and social and kind of will take care of everybody.
Yeah.
And they're just like such opposites, the two. It doesn't mean that the Swedes aren't,
No.
loving,
Yeah.
but it's just like they're a little bit more reserved. And on me, you can see that I'm mixed, but I'd never even thought about it until you said it. I'm like, oh, but now it makes sense.
Do you know what though? I just think you're the most beautiful mix of the two because I think I love how direct you are. Well, I think what I especially love and appreciate is how you communicate and like assert your boundaries. Like you're very sort of like, yeah, this is how it's going to be, but you're so warm and friendly as well. And I just feel like it's the most beautiful combination of the two sides.
I'm like, here are my boundaries. Please, please don't
Don't cross.
cross them.
Yeah, but so polite about it. Please don't cross them. No, I love it. I think it's so good. I learn a lot from seeing how you like assert them and interact with people online. So
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate how you share them.
It's been a lifelong journey because I think I was a people pleaser. Well,
Yeah,
I know I was a people
same.
pleaser. I don't think
Yeah,
so. And then, really, really getting to know myself, coming to terms with who I am. That whole journey has been such a lifelong journey from 35 years old. I'm like, wait, I don't know who I am.
yeah, yeah. Same.
And then just trying to get to know who I am, what I stand for, who I want to be when I grow up, kind of thing. I'm really young.
Honestly, I feel the same. I'm like, what am I going to do when I grow up? I still feel so young.
We need to be around young people to maintain this
Yeah,
the youthful
definitely.
thinking. What do you think you bring in from your familial culture? Like, does that impact how you show up in your business?
I think it does. I think like my maybe this is like less cult like heritage specific and more just like my family, but I
Mhm.
definitely see how like my parents' values like I see those outworking in like my business, in how I show up, in how I interact. Like there's definitely a lot of the people pleaser in there that I'm unpicking that I've inherited. But like relationships are just something that I really value and that are really important to me. And so like I think that is a huge part of my work. And that probably is like a heritage thing as well, like South American culture, like it's very very expressive, very warm, like very relational. And I think a lot of my clients end up being really good friends and I like
Mhm.
connect with them and I have like a long-term relationship with them and I really value and I'm proud that that is something that happens in my business. Like it makes me really happy when those clients become friends and I have like
Mm.
a long-term relationship with them beyond working with them. So I think that's probably like the biggest way that it plays out. I think there's probably like a lot of sort of more negative things that I need to like unpick as well. Like I'm quite hot. I mean, these are quite like stereotypes, but like I'm quite hot headed. I sort of like react very emotionally, and I am very grateful that I married someone who's not like that, and so I can sort of have my outburst of emotion, and I can like process what I'm feeling and then get to a sort of like more measured place. Like I've definitely had to learn not to respond to things too quickly.
Mhm.
um and he's always like telling me like you don't have to reply to people straight away, like you can take some time. That's I think that's sort of some of the boundary areas that I particularly have to work on. Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots still I'm still learning about myself and still unpicking as to why I am or work in particular ways.
Where do you seek inspiration?
I think for me, again, it really is like other people. Like I could say to you, like I read design books and I look on Pinterest, and all of those things, like seeing other people's work does inspire me. But I do think the things that inspire me the most is those like the friendship, like having
Mm.
those friendships where you chat through ideas. Like I'm very fortunate that I have like one friend in particular, but a group of friends where I have the safety to sort of like process things, like in real time. So I can go into that conversation, very much like, I don't know this if this is where I'm going to finally land, but here's what I'm thinking. Let's work this through together. And I think from a creativity perspective, that really helps me, because I can go in and be like, I've got this idea, and they'll come back and be like, well, have you thought about this? Like that sort of interaction really inspires me, because it sort of like sets the sort of like, the, I don't know, the inspiration neurons, or I don't know what the scientific term is for it, but that gets my brain like really going.
Mhm.
And that's probably why I love the podcasting so much, because it's basically an opportunity to just get to do that with loads of different
Yeah.
people, be like, oh, okay, that's made me think that, it's like that connecting of the dots. So I think relationships is where I get most inspired. And even like, one of the reasons that I enjoy going to conferences is the same, like getting to sit and listen to someone share their
Mm.
ideas gets me thinking about things in a different way. So I actually sent an email about this just before we started recording, but I went to a conference last week, and one of the talks was so good, like it almost made me want to ditch the rest of the conference so that I could go and do what they had said like immediately, because it had just
Oh,
given me
wow.
loads of ideas. And I think that, yeah, I think that's it, is like people is the thing that excites me, people is the thing that inspires me. um yeah, and experiences, I guess, which is part of that, like I get very inspired by being in different places and different scenarios, and like there's anxiety that comes with it, like I still get nervous about things, and when you're going somewhere completely new, there's like a certain level of like, oh, what's this going to be like, but on the whole, just changing my day-to-day scenario gets me inspired as well. And it doesn't have to be exotic, like it literally can just be going somewhere new where I live, or with someone new,
Yeah.
anything like that.
Nice. Before I move on to the next thing, because I want to talk about AI, you mentioned my red flag check really early on in this conversation. You seem to have some checks, it seems like. What are your red flags that you're looking out for?
I think sometimes they're hard to quantify. I mean, like one of them would be like, you can often tell if people don't value what you do. So there's like a bunch of phrases. So I actually referenced one of these in the talk that I gave that you came to. So if someone uses like just, oh, I just need you to do this, like that's usually a red flag for me. I think if they sort of use language that, like implies, oh, it's easy, it's quick, like that, they just don't seem like they value what you do. A really painful one that I had to learn was when, like I've sort of outlined the process. I've got quite a clear process now, but sometimes people want to like skip a chunk of the process.
Mm.
So I've had people be like, can you make me social media? I don't need branding, I need social media graphics. And actually what they want is for me to create their brand through their social media graphics. And like I've done that years ago. It was a complete disaster, and I won't ever do that again. So I think things like that, where it's they want to skip part of the
Yeah.
process. Um, if anyone says to me, I'll know it when I see it, I run a mile. That's like my main one. I've had that before, where they're like, I don't really know what I want or what I like, but I'll know it when I see it. And I'm like, no, no, no. So there's like a few things like that. It's not always specific terms, like sometimes it's the tone. Sometimes I just know like that I'm just not going to gel with that person, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
have that sort of like, I'm not going to have the sort of relationship that I want to have with them. And it doesn't mean that they have to be like me. Like I actually have like a lot of clients who are like very direct, for example, which isn't necessarily my form of communication, but I actually love that, because there's no ambiguity about where I stand with them. So as
Mhm.
long if I know they're direct, then I won't get offended if they say something direct to me. Like I can frame it within that knowledge. I really struggle when there's like ambiguity about what they think or how they feel, or that sort of thing. So I think it's not that they have to be like me, but I just know, yeah, if we're going to sort of like gel and work together. And I think that is like one of the big things that gets talked about in branding, is like attracting the right people and repelling the wrong
Mhm.
people. And I think sometimes like we've been conditioned, maybe especially as women, like that we have to get on with everybody and we have to be nice to
Mhm.
everybody. And I think it's been really liberating for me to be like, I am not going to be the right person for everybody. And it's not because there's something defective in me, it's just because they're different and they
Yeah.
need something different, like for it to work well. And I think that's just, I mean, like, there's still part of me that wants everybody to love me, right? I'm still working through that. But acknowledging that, like in the same way, I don't like to learn from everybody. Like there's some people who are incredible at what they do and have got these amazing skills and are probably really good teachers. But for me, they're
Mm.
not great teachers. Whereas for someone else, they're like the best teacher and they get loads out of it. And I think like that's really helped me to be like, well, I don't like learning from everybody. I don't like working with every type of person. So that's going to be the same for me. I can't even remember what your question was.
The red
Oh,
flags,
the
but
red
you're
flags.
you're
Yeah,
doing it. You're
yeah,
answering
yeah.
it.
I am answering it. I'm answering it. So yeah, I think like having the confidence to be like, oh, we don't really click, and I don't think this is going to be a smooth process, and that's okay.
Yeah. When you said, I don't know what I want, I'm like, I've definitely said that. I'm like, I don't know what I want. But I didn't say, I'll know when I see it. I didn't say that part.
No, and that's just self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And probably saying that is like, oh, okay, I need to think a bit about what it is I do want. But a lot of
Yeah.
people, I don't think, have the self-awareness, like that they need to work out what it is that they want. And I
Yeah.
get it because, like if you're going to a designer, like part of it is that you don't know how to do the thing that they're doing for you. And
Mhm.
you probably don't even know how to articulate design in the same way that they would, which is, like why I'll ask particular questions to
Yeah.
help get that out of them. And why I personally like showing them more than one
Yeah.
concept, because it makes it easier for them to work out what they like. It's to help them get better at communicating what they like and what they don't like. I mean, most people don't say it like that. But yeah, that has happened to me one time. Like one time where they said those exact words.
Oh,
I'll
really?
know when I see it. And then
Oh
I'm
no,
like,
that for
yeah,
me, that's the flag
that's the
part.
flag. Yeah. Yeah. I think don't know, not knowing what you want. Like I can help you with that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's the,
that's
yeah,
my cry for help. Every
yeah,
time I say that, I'm like, I
yeah,
don't know what I want.
yeah.
I'm like, I need
And
help.
I can help people narrow that down. But
Yeah.
I think that I'll know when I see it is an unwillingness to engage with the
Yeah,
process of working out what you want. It's kind of
absolutely.
like, give me everything and then I'll pick, and that's when it's not going to work.
Yeah. That's just like a nightmare waiting to happen. Nightmare already happening,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. That second half is the red flag bit
Is
for
the red
sure.
flag. I just felt a little bit guilty. I'm like, I've definitely said that. I am the red flag.
No, I
Although
don't
I have
think.
to
Yeah.
admit, I don't think I'm an easy client. Like I don't think anyone listening, don't ever pitch me because I'm the worst client in the world. How to not get cold pitches in your DMs.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the way.
I like it.
I want to go down the AI route a little bit.
Okay.
Are you using AI?
I mean, yeah, a bit.
Yeah. What part of your workflow would you have it in?
I think one of the sort of like misnomers with the AI conversation is that it's actually been around and we've been using it for a long time. I think when people talk about AI now, what they're sort of talking about generative AI. So I use the non-generative stuff a lot. So like, info, like from a designer perspective, AI is embedded into pretty much into all of the tools that I use. And there's functions there that save me so much time. So if I can click a button that is going to remove the background for an image,
Yeah.
I am old enough as a designer that I used to spend hours cutting around people's hair in their profile to get a really clean background. And it was painful. So
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, I'm like, yes, AI, you saved me hours doing this thing that I didn't want to do. I think it's an interesting one. I feel a lot more comfortable with using text, like generative text than I do generative images. And part of that
Mhm.
is because I want to do the images. I don't
Mhm.
want AI to do it for me. Whereas writing, I find harder. So I'm happy to have help in that area. I don't
Mm-hmm.
tend to use it loads. I would say that I probably would like use ChatGPT more like an assistant where I would like ask it for ideas and then that would spark other ideas for me. I'm less likely to be like, write this for me. Again, because like I think for me, it comes back to the people thing. Like, I'm not really interested in reading what other people have prompted ChatGPT to write. And so I kind of like, well, why would they be interested in reading that for me? Like, I want to know what people really think. But I
Mm-hmm.
can totally see how it's a really helpful tool. So I'm not like anti it. I'm wary, but not anti.
Okay.
The generative AI stuff, I do have a bunch of issues with, but for me, yeah, I'm still working through it. Like it's messy in my head still, I would say.
So in the conversations that I've had, I don't know, did you hear my podcast on taste? I don't know if you did, because then you'll know
No,
what I'm
but I've
referring
seen, so
to.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I've seen some of the content that you were sharing about that.
No, that's okay. I just didn't want to go too deep into it because we can just reference it if you had listened to it. So one of the things that has been in our conversation is that at home is that, well, AI can do a fair bit, and whether this is imagery or in writing, but what it doesn't have is taste. And
Mm.
earlier in another podcast, the comment was, well, AI doesn't know what is good. So AI doesn't know what is good, and AI doesn't have taste. I feel like that's a really interesting point, because to really speak frankly, it just becomes a little bit more elitist when it comes to design. Because if everyone can design, everyone can write because of AI, who then determines what is good and what is in good taste, let's say?
Mm.
So it's a conversation which I haven't got my head around, which is the podcast is basically me not having my head around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like a whole philosophical
I
debate.
love that though. Work it out in real time.
Work it out in real time. So when I say this, what comes up for you with AI not having, knowing what's good and not having taste? What just comes up?
So, an interesting chat that I had with my brother, maybe like about a year ago. So, he's a software developer. So, he's
Okay.
writing code. And obviously, like AI has implications for his industry as well. And so, we were having a conversation about it. And we kind of landed on, I don't know how to say this, like the people who are like at the top of their game and
Yeah.
who are doing really, really well, it's going to have less of an impact on them. It's going to be the sort of more middle of the road, like people sort of doing a generic standard of something that are going to be more impact. So it's kind of the same thing I think that happened when design tools like Canva became available.
Yeah.
So like when Canva became available, design became more accessible, right? More people had the tools at their fingertips to design. But as you say, that doesn't give you taste and it doesn't give you the design principles that
Mm-hmm.
like other designers will have gone away and learned before they started designing. So like yes, they can physically create something, but they don't necessarily have the like foundation to create the thing like really well. And I think this is what we're seeing again. So the people who were like, who don't have the foundation and the knowledge, they are going to suffer because of AI, because now a robot can do like what they were doing. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the people who have the foundational knowledge of like the design concepts, accessibility, all these different things, and have the taste are going to do well. So that's the same. What was interesting that my brother was saying is like that's the same for code. So yes, a robot can write the code for something for you, but it's not going to be the neatest code. It's not going to be the most efficient code, and it's going to be missing like some of the sort of like principles of coding that you learn when you learn from scratch up to like expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what he's noticing is like younger developers like coming in and he'll look at their code and there'll be like a whole load of issues and messes that he then has to go in and like correct and fix. And so I think there's like a particular group that are going to be massively impacted by AI, and it's not necessarily everybody.
How do you know what is good?
Yeah, I mean, that is tricky. And that is something that I've because design, like ultimately design is subjective. I mean, I do think there are some core principles with design that tell you whether something is good or not. And like, you know, they're not groundbreaking. Like if people can't read the thing that you've designed, then it's
Mhm.
not good design because it's not fulfilling the purpose that it was created for, which is to communicate something effectively. So I think there's certain like benchmarks that you can use to determine whether something's good. There's like there's also like a bunch of like typographic rules, for example, like which often show whether something has been like well, so there's very like practical things that show whether something has been well designed or not. Beyond that, like the taste thing is interesting. So
Mm.
like I was actually chatting to a friend about this today. He'd been to a talk by some designers who'd done a rebrand for a big company, and it had got a lot of backlash online because a load of designers didn't think it was good. And then we were talking about how, do you remember the 2012 Olympics branding? It was
Yes.
so controversial at the
Yeah.
time and people hated it. But now, if you look at it, you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, fine. Like, and it really was very ahead of its time in terms of like the style
Mhm.
and how it worked. I think with a lot of things, it's like, what is the goal with this thing? What are you trying to do? And I think this is one of the, I mean, this is going to go off on a tangent, but one of the things that I see happening a lot online in the design industry is there's just so much like viscerating of other people's designs. Like designers love to trash other people's designs online and they don't have the brief. And like that
Mm.
is what really grinds my gears because he was
Yeah.
talking about this talk that he'd gone to. And basically, the brief had been to massively modernize a business that had been very focused on heritage in the past. So their brief was literally to completely like throw out the heritage and do something really modern. People hated that because they loved the familiar heritage aspect of it, but actually the designers had like answered the brief perfectly. It's just that some people weren't ready to like let go of the heritage aspect of that business. So I
Yeah.
think it's often like, what is the goal? You know, like, does the design achieve the goal, and does the target audience enjoy it? Like this company was a paper company. You know, do the people who are going to actually like use this paper and buy this paper like it? Or, you know, does someone like, so it depends like who the target audience is.
Yeah.
um there's always in the same way that I am not going to be universally liked by everybody as much as I want to be, like no design is going to be universally liked by everybody. So I think it's very much the same, you know, as we build personal brands and we have to, you know, and we put ourselves out there online and we have to accept that we're not going to be to everybody's taste. Design is the same, you know, like we want as many of the target audience to like it and enjoy it as possible, but not everybody's going to like it. So I think that's where the sort of like taste comes in. But I do think taste is something that you can develop and hone. It's
Mhm.
not like you're born with taste or you're not born with taste. It's something, you know, along with your skills, it's something that you work on and you develop. And I think as you become better at articulating why you like something and why you don't like something, that helps you to hone your taste, because then you can back it up with like a reason. It's not just a like, I like the color, you know. So the
Mm.
other red flag that we didn't cover was like, oh well, my wife likes the color orange, so that has to be in the branding. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, what can you back it up with? Why is orange going to
Mhm.
be like a good color to use in this design? Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
It's a philosophical question in a way, so
Yeah.
there is no right or wrong answer. I had I would say, kind of, I wasn't heated or angry, but I could sense the anger in the LinkedIn comment. It was on someone else's post, and some UX designer was basically saying, design is meant to solve a problem. It's got nothing to do with taste. I'm like, well, actually, design may solve design is there to solve the problem, but taste does come into it, because if it's not
Mm.
tasteful, then why would anyone adopt it? Why would it be used?
Yeah.
Like, design outside of taste is not effective design, in my opinion. And I kept saying in my opinion
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's an opinion, it's not like fact. And it became quite a heated on his side, and I'm like, why am I engaging with this? Like, he's not even open, and I'm like, I'm not even quoting my opinion, I'm quoting philosophers here. So
Mm,
it was quite interesting how that conversation was going, and for me that then suddenly is solidified even more. I love having conversations like this because it helps me solidify
yes.
my own opinion on things. I'm like, well, actually, I think AI can solve the problems. That's not going to be the problem. AI won't be able to know whether it's in good taste or not, or like whether and there's no such thing as good or bad taste. I think it's just taste, because taste is subjective,
Mm.
which is what he was saying. Taste is subjective. I'm like, yes, taste is subjective, but it's also existing in the collective, which means that there is some collective taste, and you can you can go apart from, you can be apart from the collective and diverge from the collective, and therefore you will develop a different type of taste, and there will be some who like that and some who don't, but neither is good nor bad, it just is.
I think
And
there's so. Oh, sorry. You're
no,
gone.
go on, go
I was
on.
just going to say, I just think there's so many examples that back up exactly what you're saying. Like, for example, like you can have two products that are very both like fulfill the function, but because of one, how one looks over the
Mhm.
other, people will spend more money because the taste part is there. So like,
Yes.
like Apple is a classic example of that. Like
Mhm.
their products fulfill the same function as other products, but because of the way they look, like the taste that's part of it, people love it. But another thing that's interesting about Apple, um this was like in the 1990s, they brought out a handheld, it was like one of the sort of like first handheld like pilot devices. It was like the first tablet basically,
Yeah.
and it was disgusting. Like it was so ugly, and it was like universally panned because people
Mhm.
hated it, like the design, like the like the look of it, everything. And people weren't ready for it. But that was the product that led to what we have now as the iPad. So if that product hadn't existed, we wouldn't have that, like we probably wouldn't have the iPad now. And I just think it's so interesting, like they released this product, everyone hated it, like it didn't have the right look, but it was actually what needed to come before so that they could like then iterate,
Yeah.
learn from that. And I think someone described it, it was like a prophetic failure. So it was like, it was universally panned. Like it was just a
Mhm.
failure of a product, but it was like prophetic of what was to come. And then like the other example, I think, where you were talking about divergent taste, like I think Crocs is a really good example for this,
Yeah.
where like for the longest time people were like, oh, I would not be seen dead wearing those. Like people really
Mhm.
had like a very strong emotional reaction against them, and like they've managed to totally turn that around. And people who like hated them, I don't know whether they're wearing them ironically or how they're wearing them, but they convinced people that they were cool, and now loads of people are wearing them. And like you can change people's opinion and perception of taste, and it like you said, it is subjective. But again, like yeah, that's the bit that AI can't do. Like
Yeah.
AI can't convince you that something that you thought was really ugly is the coolest thing, and you have to own it.
Mhm. It's such an interesting conversation. I'm very curious to see where this goes and how AI will develop. And because I think in order to have taste, you must have empathy, or you must feel.
Mm,
There's some, I don't know, there must be some feelings involved in all of this to be able to deduce what what comes next, like what, how would people respond to it.
mm,
There's just so much of it, and I think also taste does must develop over time, because you need a variety. You need to be discerning to understand that there is a difference between different colors. Like, for example, I it wasn't until I met my husband Darren who we were looking at this is like early first business, 25 years old. We were looking at typefaces for my first business, and I was like, Darren, they all look the same. I don't even know what to look out for. You're like showing me all these things, and I like, they look the same. And he had to teach me what to look for. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, look at the A, look at the T, look at the ligature, look at the, I'm like, look at the angles. And I'm like, oh, I now know what to look out for. And I think that's, so mastery is one part of it. So you need to kind of practice, get to know something really well. And even like, typography is not my strong suit at all. I find it, I really have to focus on each letter and kind of have them side by side. I'm not natural at it. I need to kind of see the difference. But someone who's mastering it, they'd be like, got it, see it, I see it, I see the differences. Whereas I see the sameness still, but not to the same degree, obviously, like I've learned. And I think that too has an element of taste in it, because we need to master something to discern. And then we also need contrast, which is what you do in your process. You provide contrast for your clients so that they can then make judgment calls on taste, which is why I think your process is actually quite good.
Oh,
But
thanks. That's
not one is not better than the other, but it is quite good.
Yeah. I think you're so right, and I guess that, like, it is highlighting those aspects that AI just can't, like, recreate. I think some of the sadness for me about AI at the moment, so my son is 8, and in school he is being taught how to prompt AI, and there's a part already, and there's a
Mine is
part
8. He hasn't.
I know.
Sorry.
I think it's actually a Welsh curriculum thing.
Okay.
So it might be different. And I also think it happens to do with the teacher that he has, who I think is very interested in that sort of thing.
Okay.
But he's being taught to prompt AI, and part of me loves it, because I'm like, this is so cool that you're learning this so young. And like the stuff that comes out, I'm like, this is so good, like amazing. But the sadness for me is the thought that he's going to grow up to think that he just types something in and it appears. Like, he hasn't gone through that process of, oh, I drew this thing and it doesn't look how I wanted it to do, so now I have to hone my skill, like I have to, that process of practicing. And I think there's such a huge thing in the creative process of learning how to do something, where it's that frustration of, I've got this idea in my head and there's a gap, there's like a skill gap, like I need to practice and learn to be able to then produce this thing that's in my head. And I worry that because so young he's learning to prompt AI, like he thinks that's what the creative process is. I mean, obviously I'm not going to allow that to happen, and I'm going to be like, no, you must draw. And I'm trying to like embrace it as well, and the things that he's created are really cool. But I think often with these tools that we have, we're just not very good at thinking a few steps ahead of like what the impact that is going to have on people. And I think, we're really seeing that now with like phones, for example. Like when the phone came out, like probably there were some people that were really cautious about it, but we like universally embraced it. And now people are unpicking and like, oh, this is the impact that having my phone on me constantly is having on my brain, is having on how I think, is having on my attention span. And sometimes I'm just like, we just need to think a few steps ahead of what this like might be do to us like long term. And I think that's something that collectively we're not that great at doing.
No. And I think it's also so hard to predict, right? A lot of people say stay in the present moment. It's like, we're not even in the present moment, even though we can't look into the future. We're always like one step ahead. That's it. Like that one step ahead of like, what's next? And we forget that I feel like the present time doesn't even exist, but several steps ahead, that I don't think a lot of people have that foresight, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it is hard. I guess that ideal would be if we just went a bit slower with everything, but obviously that's not the way our world works, and it's all about getting there as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, throughout time, that has been the only objective.
Yeah.
Gosh, that is kind of a frightful thought. How much more faster can things be? Like, it's pretty fast right now.
So fast.
I needed to stop listening to certain podcasts because I'm like, I'm going into doom mode because of this AI thing. I'm like, this is it. We're done. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. And obviously it's not over.
No.
But just being in that echo chamber I'm like, I need to extract myself from this. So I don't watch the news. People may judge me as much as they want. I don't watch the
I'm
news.
the same as you.
I'm
My
like, I will
husband
get the
always tells
news.
me off for it. I'm
Well,
like,
your
I'll
husband can
invent.
tell you the
Yeah,
news.
he tells me. I'm like, I'd rather have it filtered through you. Tell me the bit important
Yeah.
bits I need to know. Yeah,
Exactly,
totally.
because there's so much terrible stuff happening all over the world. And I see one video and I'm like crying on the phone, going like, oh my gosh, there is
Yeah,
like disaster happening here. You know, like I'm emotional about pretty much everything.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't need more negativity in my life. If if I'm affected, meaning someone I know is affected, I'll find out. There's no way I won't find out. The
Mm,
news travels well enough without the media, me watching the media all the time.
yeah.
Well, I had a point with that. Well, yeah, so I feel like that's an echo chamber, right? Of
Mm.
negativity, just being around all the destruction that's happening in the world. And I was in this echo chamber of like AI is going to take, like,
Ruin
we are 5
everything.
years away from AI be having super intelligence. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And nobody knows what that means or looks like.
Mm,
And everyone's like, I don't know. I don't know is the answer to everything about the future. And I'm like, you know what? It's not right now.
yeah.
Stay in the present moment.
And I do ultimately think, like, the hope that I hold on to is like, like so much of what we've talked about in this chat today has been about people and that
Yeah.
connection and that relationship. And like, that's the bit that gives me hope, because there's just no way that people, like, we're designed to crave that. Even if you're the most introverted of introverted, like, you still need relationship, like, you
Yeah.
still need people. And I think
Connections.
that's the bit where I'm like, well, AI is never ever going to be able to replicate that, not
No.
well anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I'm clinging on to. It's like, we still need each other, we still need people.
Yes, I'm clinging on to that as well. And it's a wonderful note to end on. Liz, where can people find you?
You can find me, so my website's lizmosley.net. You can find my podcast, which is buildingyourbrand.net, and definitely go listen to the episode with Ivy. And on social media at Liz M. Mosley.
Thank you. Liz, I could probably talk to you for another 2 hours. I'm like,
We're gonna have to do
I
a
have the
follow-up.
worst. We should do a follow up. I feel like I always have the most abrupt ending. I'm like, oh, it's 1 hour, over an hour
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
I'm like, I need to end this somehow. So all my endings are a little bit random, just like this one. Liz, you're a superstar. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and chatting to you. So thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
That's it for today's episode of The Creative Flight. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I invite you to leave a review. It really helps more creators find the show. For more insights and behind the scenes content, you can follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can also check out my resources on ivymalik.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep creating, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep taking flight.